So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and you're all very welcome back to the Summit of the Americas Knowledge Hub sessions. We begin today with the latest of our series this week, which we're calling the CEO Chair, in which we speak to chief executives of leading airport companies in the region. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Roel Hoening, who's president and CEO of JFK IAT, the company that operates New York JFK Terminal 4. Roel leads the management team at the biggest of the JFK terminals, and some of you, of course, will know him from his time in other roles with Schiphol Group, whose Schiphol USA affiliate owns JFK IAT. He was managing director of Arlanda Schiphol Development Company, an airport retail management partnership in Sweden previously, and also was director of parking and mobility services at Amsterdam Airport Schiphol. And in another role, he was part of the management team at Norway-based travel and high street retailer Airport Retail Group. Roel, you're very welcome today, and it's good to connect with you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. We would love to meet in person again, right? When we were starting here, we would hope to go and get a beer together, but this is how we do it now, right?
One day we'll manage it, one day, of course.
Exactly.
So look, to kick off, obviously this has been the toughest of years, and at Terminal 4, of course, you operate a mix of international and domestic traffic. So can you first of all maybe tell us just about the impact you've experienced and the situation today at JFK T4 in terms of traffic and business overall?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And of course, like everywhere else in the industry, we've been hit hard, which started already. The pandemic started for us already in January last year with the Chinese travel ban. Chinese travel is normally a very important part of our business, with 5 flights to mainland China daily, and those were impacted directly. As of the European travel ban back in March, again, like everywhere else, traffic basically dropped to zero. And I was just looking at the first few days, exactly a year ago, the first few days of April, where we had an average of still 2,000 passengers a day and only 200 international. So it really dropped from a normal of 65 to 70,000 passengers a day to almost nothing. And that of course has had a huge impact on our business and on our organization.
Yeah.
The traffic is still volatile, but it's growing, and we've seen early signs that traffic is returning. The northeast of the US has been hit harder with COVID than other parts of the US, but we are still looking at the numbers today, especially with the holiday season that we just had. Around 50 to 55% of domestic traffic has come back, and around 30 to 35 of international traffic. So I'm positive in that sense, and we see an increase, but of course we're not near to where we were a year ago.
Yeah, and just to clarify on the domestic front, I think you mentioned that's predominantly a Delta led business, and I think you said it was around 40% overall in normal times of traffic. And just that first, and then also if you've some international traffic, where is that going to, and is that regional or is it further afield?
Well, I think yes. The first question was Delta. Delta is our major partner, is our anchor tenant in our terminal. So New York is their key hub, is a key destination and key market. So they've invested in that heavily and keep investing in that heavily, which is good for us. Secondly, if we look at the international travel, it is mostly Caribbean, some South America, and obviously there is Europe. And I, as you said, I come from Schiphol, and it's good to see that the Schiphol flight has continued every day, also during the pandemic. So KLM and Delta keep on flying every day. The load factors have been extremely low. Sometimes planes leave with 20, 30 passengers on board for 777 or A350.
Yeah.
So it's tough. What is interesting though is that we've had an enormous amount of cargo, and as a passenger terminal, we didn't even have cargo rates, so to say, because that is not the business we're in. But
Mm.
we've had up to 20 full cargo freighters in our terminal a day. So that has been a huge business. We have been supporting our airlines, and Virgin Atlantic has been one of the partners that has really grown that business and have shown that they could make that change very quickly and keep on flying to New York.
Right. Just to talk through maybe some of the big challenges you face, what have they been in terms of operating, the terminal over this period? And I suppose as a management team, how have your priorities and strategy shifted from over a year ago when the crisis first broke to today?
Well, I think it hit us pretty fast and hard, so to say. And we quickly realized, especially with a health crisis and a pandemic, that the key priority is to keep our facility as safe as possible. So after the start of the crisis, we quickly implemented a comprehensive response plan and actually defined 5 areas. So hygiene and sanitization, health and well-being, social distancing and queuing, transactions and communications. And every project team that we created in our company focused on these specific challenges, right? From anxiety around high touch point areas within the terminal, to communicating safety measures to consumers and staff. And really everybody developed targeted solutions around these challenges. And we started with that, and we keep our focus on those 5 areas, strategic areas. And make sure that in the end we find ways to enable the most contactless consumer experience as possible. And that, I think, has been coming up in most of the interviews in the past few days and actually in the past year.
Yeah.
We go contactless. So I have to say we are a small team. We are 100, normally around a staff of 100 people. We have maximized our outsourcing. So that also required that we had to make a huge change in our teams. We chose to stop many of our contracts, but then in order to keep our staff and keep the knowledge and keep on working on these projects that I identified, we've asked all of our staff to work in the front line too. I always say our head of purchasing is a security guard for 2 days a week. And he's been doing that for a year, including myself.
Oh.
So we've been saying that we need to make sure that we keep the company running, but also make sure that we keep the knowledge in the company. And by doing that, working hybrid, that really has worked.
Yeah, it was interesting speaking yesterday to Sean Donoghue at DFW Airport about a similar theme, which was retaining that level of skill and knowledge in the business, because when you're trying to build back, you're at such a disadvantage if you simply just cut and cut some more. And I guess you've taken that attitude very seriously at JFK T4.
Yeah, we did. And I think that is also the biggest challenge for all of our partners, whether they're in airlines or in the suppliers, sanitization or maintenance, and for our retailers. We see that we are opening up now. We see that traffic is coming back. People were furloughed. After a while, either they find a new job, or they decide not to work, or their badge is expired, or they move somewhere else, right, away from the city. So retaining that knowledge and that workforce is extremely difficult, and especially now, as you said, when traffic is coming back, when you need to bring people back slowly, it's a massive challenge.
Yeah, and I suppose a related question here, and with the impact on people's lives and livelihoods, what's that been like, and how difficult has it been to try and build resilience among those teams as well? Because that, I guess, is part of the leadership role that you play there.
Yeah, and I always say that as essential workers, the employees at T4, not only from our company, but from all the companies in T4, have been on the front line throughout the crisis, right? We continue to operate 24/7. We didn't close a single hour or day throughout the entire pandemic. And our employees continue to come to work, including myself. And as a leader, I think it is extremely important to walk the talk, to show that you're there. And I always say, if I ask of my staff to be at the front line in the pandemic, I cannot sit behind my desk being arrogant. I need to be there too. And sometimes my family asks me, why do you go to the airport? There's no passengers there. Why are you so busy? And I said, well, I need to really support the teams and really support the operations and make sure that continues. So I would say that the first step to restore consumer confidence is to restore employee confidence. Because that is extremely important. If the employees play a crucial role in the customer journey at airports, and if the employee doesn't have any confidence or doesn't feel safe, that is not a good start of running a good business and treating your customers. So we made sure that we did everything we could to ensure their safety. Of course, we were stockpiling PPE and we're calling around, and I had colleagues of the management team driving around Queens and Brooklyn at 11 o'clock at night to find masks and gloves to just provide for the teams here. We conducted temperature checks, and we early on saw that we needed to find testing facilities, and we worked early on with the Express Spa. And we're able to open the first testing site at an airport or at a terminal in the US. And we're very proud of that, right? And making sure that initially all employees could be tested. We're now opening we opened for passengers too, and that has become very essential in opening up new routes. But employees first, right? So that safety of employees was extremely important. Secondly, I would say we found out that we need to keep them informed and letting them know what we were doing. So initially we send out a lot of newsletters to the whole community, and normally at T4 it's around 12,000 people. It scaled down to maybe 2,000 very quickly. But still, we needed to make sure that they knew what kind of measures we were taking to guard their safety. So those newsletters and bulletins and communications and videos were extremely important. And I think we've always prided ourselves of being a strong terminal community and have a strong terminal culture, and that helped. Right? We were prepared. People knew each other. There's a strong culture of being together and coming together. So people were really working closely together, and that really helped us through the difficult period.
Yeah. And so in terms of, I suppose, I was going to ask you about the lessons about leadership you learned. I suppose part of it was that hands-on element that you mentioned as well, getting your own hands dirty in terms of, so to speak, in terms of the day-to-day role, but then also the communication side. Clearly they were the two keys. And any other lessons in particular that you learned over the time?
Well, I think, as you said, right, resilience is critical, right, and it is important to communicate, and you shouldn't stop trying, and make sure that you're able to support each other. We also did organize support for our teams to help them cope with the situation, because it's tough, and especially New York was hit hard. So really try to give them support. Also external support, and invest in that, and contract external companies to say, hey, if staff wants to talk about their personal situation and get counseling, we organize that, because it was really tough, and we've asked them to step up and come to work. So by giving them that background and that safety, that helped them through the crisis. So I think as a leader, apart from fighting to survive as a company, because let's be clear, the revenues dropped dramatically, We had to cut costs hard, keep really control of costs still, but making sure that your people are okay is always the main priority, I think.
Yeah. Can you talk to us a bit about the impact on your partnerships? There's airlines, I suppose, on one hand, but then also your commercial and concession partners. So they and the brands, I guess, will be predominantly the audience here as well. So what's been the impact on them? And I guess beyond that, how have you tried to work with them in terms of support? Because clearly for the airport, you face your own huge costs, and so any relief measures have got to be borne with that in mind, and building back in mind. So maybe just talk to us a little bit about that, the partnership with all of those players, and how that looks going forward too.
Yeah, yeah. So we've I think we would pride ourselves in having a close relationships with all of our partners, right? And if I start with the Port Authority, who is the one that is running the airport, the largest airport system in the US, they have been crucial here, and the close relationship with them is important to make sure that all measures are equally implemented throughout all their airports, 5 airports in New York. Then our strongest partners in the airlines, they were facing their own challenges, and we've been in very close contact with them to make sure that we know when is traffic coming back, what are they planning, can we support them, what do they need for their staff, what do they need for operation. Oh, they are bringing in new cargo flights. Okay, that's something completely new. How do we cater for that? How do we organize that? And then not lastly, I would say is our suppliers, and most of all for this audience, our concessionaires. And over the years, we've worked very closely with them. We have the largest concession partners and I would say in the travel retail business are in our terminal. So it's SSP, and it's Paradise Lagardère, it's DFS, it's Dupree, Hudson. So we know that they have been hit hard worldwide. Together with their DBE partners, there's a lot of local business involved with them too. And we really had to work through how do we cope, right? Yeah. So enforcing new cleaning procedures, new equipment, enable contactless procedures, and make all the changes that they had to do. But first of all, everybody wanted to close because there was no traffic. And I think that is a really balance that as a terminal operator you have to strike. Do you want to give the passenger experience and make sure that everything is open? Or do you let your partners close because you don't want them to lose money? And we have chosen to try and achieve both, which is difficult. And sometimes you have heated discussions, but I think because we've had those long relationships, we've always tried to find good solutions together. And we have said that they could close their stores because, of course, they had to lay off their staff or furlough their staff. And of course, they had to implement new measures. And of course, they had to safeguard their cash flow too. On the other hand, now building up again, we have a constant dialogue about opening up and what is the right timing. And yeah. I always say nobody's in the business of losing money. So we have to find that fine line. How can we work together that and the passenger is served, we as an airport and as a terminal, or we as a terminal operator, see that we can deliver those customer experiences that are needed, and the operator to make sure that they can operate in an environment that is sustainable for them. And that is not easy. Yeah. But through partnership, I think you can work it out in the long run. But the short term is difficult. It is.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I was going to say, what those conversations are like, because clearly, and the retailers obviously telling us that they prioritize opening profitably at a certain pace, of course, and one that enables them to make money as they go, however gradually. But you have to look at that big picture and don't want shuttered stores dotted across the terminal. And no, it is about the bigger picture for you and the experience. So no easy solution, of course, but I guess that's something that week by week and perhaps day by day and even hour by hour you're examining very closely.
Yeah, and I must say the partners have been great, and also kudos to them for remaining open even when passengers were not there, and they have really stepped up, even though if it was just with a few locations, they remained open, and they had their own issues with COVID cases, quarantining, people have to leave work, stores could not be open because there was simply no staff there to perform the work, so that is a challenge. And we work with them on a day-to-day basis to really look at our passenger forecast and our projections. So that's where it starts, right? We reach out to the airlines. What's coming up? You can have models, which we have. I think we're at model Z almost like every week is a new financial forecast model, and we really try to get that input from the airlines. What are you expecting? And then hand that over to the retailers and say, this is how the next coming weeks looks. This is what a long-term plan looks, and let's sit together and try to figure out what we can open when. And well, let's be clear, in the end, the interests are aligned, right? We have the customer experience in focus. We all say that, but also let's be clear. I look at my bottom line and the retailer looks at the bottom line. And those interests are not always aligned. So I will push for more openings, and the retailer will potentially say, well, I'm only going to lose money. So I think by having that constant dialogue, having those discussions, trying to find where you can help each other, we will gradually work back towards a full opening.
Yeah, and I suppose within that, by how much have you had to rework and reframe and rethink the existing agreements that you have? I mean, a lot of airports have gone for MAG relief, a suspension of MAGs, for example, and other workings around rental agreements and so on. I guess, are those in place, and are those sustained out for the coming months, or are they? How are you planning them on a week by week, month by month basis?
Yeah, so we have, in collaboration with the Port Authority, let's be clear there, because what New York has a different setup than most of the airports, where every terminal is operated by a different entity. So together with the partners at the Port Authority, try to find a framework that works. The Port Authority was the beneficiary of the CARES Act monies, not so much private entities like us,
right?
Which is different from the rest of the country, I would say. But we found a good solution, and they've communicated clearly to their partners that a MAC relief is in place and has been extended over time. We have not yet reset all the contracts, but obviously that is coming, and those discussions are ongoing, and to need to make sure that the long-term commercial plan is in place too, and that will not come overnight, but I think we need to constantly adapt and change, and see how we can get the best customer experience and open as much as possible without the retailers going bankrupt. So that is a constant going back and forth, I would say.
Yeah, and finally on that subject, do you think that in the future, and you've obviously worked across the retail platforms as well as in the airport or space as well, do you think maybe this is a moment of change in terms of how those concession discussions and contracts are thought about and structured even for the future, given the relative balance of risk and reward in them? Do you see change coming in that area?
I've been in this industry, as you know, for a little bit, and I've had many discussions as a retailer, as an airport, around MAGs, minimum annual guarantees. Also, when I was in Sweden with back then Andrea Belladini at Nuance Group, for instance, I don't really believe in MAGs, to be honest, but I do believe that there needs to be an incentive for a retailer, and maybe you could call it a push for a retailer to perform. And when I say perform is there's a certain expectation from an airport about sales or income per departing passenger as a metric. And I think everybody has to contribute to that. And those close partnerships are extremely important. What can the airport do to drive traffic, to route traffic, to do marketing? And there's an effort on the retailer to really perform the sales. So yes, the two entities need to come together closer. That might change the setup of contracts, and Schiphol, for instance, has a contract with Heinemann, as you know, on their duty-free business. Is that a model working forward? I know that Greg Paradis and I discussed that too. I think they have that in Durham Airport, Durham, where they have a more integrated contract together. I think that is possible. On the other hand, running a terminal or an airport, the question is, are you into retailing, right? Because
yeah.
I've seen with my own eyes that the change from the airport side to the retail side is not an easy one, and is a very different one, because there are different skill sets and interests. But you need to find a common platform and you need to find common grounds to work closer together. So to come back to your question, does that mean a different contract form? Could be, yes. But I think the essence here is that coming closer together to really drive that customer experience, new concepts, digitalization is extremely important.
Yeah. A quick question just on the projects. I know you had a year ago big plans. I think a $3.8 billion plan for the terminal overall. Is that going to happen? At what pace? And what are you thinking about in terms of the priority of projects that you're going to allocate now? Because I guess you don't need, given that traffic will be probably down for some time, perhaps space and space planning isn't maybe as urgent as it was, or perhaps you can tell me whether it is, and how you see the project planning going forward.
Yeah, so we announced the $3.8 billion expansion together with our partner Delta last year. Obviously that's not going to happen, but the ambition of the Port Authority of New York to create new airports, and I think LaGuardia is a good example. I think that the team at LaGuardia Partners and Vantage Group has done a great job in creating that new terminal facility at LaGuardia. That ambition remains. So there will be expansion plans at JFK. There are obviously ongoing discussions about consolidation, expansion, but nothing to announce yet. But I think for us, looking at our terminal, apart from a expansion, we will rethink our total commercial offer, because this has changed the business. We have to see, do we have the right concepts in place? Do we have them at the right location? So yes, we are starting, or have started actually, with rethinking that, making a new commercial plan and adapting to this new landscape, right, after the pandemic. I strongly believe that we need to invest in data-driven concepts that are relevant to the passenger demographics, and also in e-commerce. And this has been an ongoing discussions. You've been around for a while too. Ongoing discussions between airports and retailers. I really hope that this pandemic is able to increase the pace of implementation. I haven't seen many implementations around the world. I think it is extremely crucial to reach out to the consumer early on in the journey, get their mindset to buying, and digitalization and digital shopping experiences and e-commerce is definitely something that will help there. And that Trinity thinking that you were always very on the forefront of, together with Martin, is truly important there. And we need to find a model which we still haven't found as an industry, how do we all benefit and make the cake bigger instead of eating each other's shares. And I think that is a big challenge for us moving forward. It has to happen. We are in the implementation phase of launching a platform, hopefully in the coming period, because I think that is truly important.
Right, and so it'll be e-commerce in partnership with the retail partners that you have, or will you go beyond the airport space as well for other partnerships? Just broadly, I know you, as if it's in the embryonic phase, there's probably a limited amount you can say.
Yeah, that's true. But yes, we are discussing that with our retail partners, and obviously there's an external party involved there too. My colleague Jan at Brisbane, he implemented it very rapidly early on in the pandemic. We're taking a little bit more time to try and get a good holistic approach and implement it. Hopefully in the next coming month or two, we were able to launch a program.
Yeah, and just back briefly to the rethinking of space, commercial space, and planning overall. Do you have a feel yet for the kinds of concepts that you might be looking to put in place? And I suppose a wider question: have you a feel for what the traveling consumer will want differently from the airport experience, and what that will mean for your offer?
Yeah, I think that airport experience is extremely important and will remain important. People traveling is exciting, and meeting new people, meeting new cultures, and that Peter Stuyvesant feel that we at Schiphol always talked about of traveling abroad is still there, and will come back. I'm very optimistic about it. People want to travel, and they also want to have great experiences at an airport. So good food and dining options are still extremely important, and we need to be more creative there. And it's a challenge as a terminal. Is you need to cater for all those groups. You have the domestic leisure traveler, you have the high-end business traveler, you have the high-end first-class traveler, especially from New York. And I think if you really are able to cater for all those groups, you can give them those experiences. So food and dining is important. Convenience will remain important wherever you go in travel essentials. That is always key. And of course, for our international markets, the duty free remains a very important pillar to our business. Not only from the view of the passenger, but let's be clear, also from our P&L, because we all know that duty free is a big contributor, and we need to keep get that going again. And in our terminal, that's the same in a lot of other airports. The Chinese passenger and their shopping power was extremely important. We have 0 China flights currently, so it's a tough time. I'm sure that it will come back, and those Chinese passengers or Asian passengers will start buying again. So again, all those elements will remain in place, but we might have to change them more rapidly, because I've always said when people travel, they want to see something new every time. And I strongly believe in redevelopment as key of driving your sales and your commercial offer. And that is also not easy, right? Because that requires investment. So we might come to a more hybrid model there and try to find solutions and contracts that are able to turn over more quickly. So a lot of things to think about. I don't think that everything has dramatically changed that much, but I think it has to come into a faster pace now.
Yeah, for sure. And just broadly on the industry overall, and T4 is one of the few privately operated terminals in the system there, in both in New York and in the US more broadly. Do you see a different maybe set of dynamics shaping the airport industry in the region you work in, airports in New York, but also in the Americas perhaps more widely?
Well, I think as you said, we were the first P3 public-private partnership in the US back in 1996. We have proven to be very successful in our partnership with the Port Authority. Now in my conversations, I always say, as a private company, let us be on the forefront of innovation. Let us be in the forefront of digitalization. Let us be in the forefront of being flexible. And as I said, our organization is only 100 people big. That's an obvious choice, or a strategic choice that we've made as an organization that makes us much more agile and flexible. And I think with working with authorities, and let's be clear that they have a different environment, right? They have a different involvement of politics, and the P3 structure can give that flexibility. And if we create good relationships and good partnerships, they can really benefit from each other. So I would encourage and applaud if more airports would go that way. But that's really a political choice. Politics is never easy and hard to predict. But you've seen some signs pre-pandemic that more airports are looking into it through those partnerships. So yes, that would definitely be something to look forward to.
Yeah. Speaking of hard to predict, I suppose it's, if you get your crystal ball out, what's your hope and maybe expectation about the rhythm of recovery through the rest of this year and beyond, and what does recovery look like actually to you this year and further down the track?
Yeah, we need to really make sure that the consumer has confidence again in air travel, right? A lot of studies have been done where it really shows that air travel in itself doesn't affect illness or people don't get COVID from traveling per se. And making sure that everybody knows it's safe, it's touchless, is extremely important. But on the other hand, let's be clear, passengers and consumers want to go back to the magic of traveling, and want to go back to having a great experience. And that starts at the airport with great retail concepts, food and dining options. And I think that with that in mind, I'm very optimistic that things will come back. Once countries start to open, travel there will be a very, very big demand, I'm pretty sure. Current models show 2023, 24. I think once the vaccination programs have been installed, we are working, for instance, also on safe corridors, right? The Delta started last week, Milan, JFK, to create that safe corridor to let people travel, to make sure that they don't have to quarantine. If you have digital passports, vaccinations, and those safe corridors, it actually can go much faster. And I really, really hope that it will be, because I think everybody is longing back to traveling themselves, and if you work at an airport, to really see all those buzzing again, because that was a great feeling, and I really would like to see that back as soon as possible.
Yeah, so would we all. And I suppose with that in mind, and I think you partially answered this, but a lot of brand owners, concessionaires, watching in or listening, and perhaps someone concerned about the future of the industry and what it might hold. Do you have a wider message about what you think the future holds for the industry? It sounds like you're quite upbeat about the long-term future for this business.
Yeah, I think the future is bright, and it has been an extremely rough year for us as an industry, for us as a company, and for me personally. But I really long to go back to the new normal. I long to go back to travel. I feel that the consumer is ready, and I feel that we as a industry have really shown that by collaborating strongly through this pandemic, we can come out of it stronger. And obviously, it will remain a bumpy road, but that's okay. As long as we keep collaborating and being open and honest to each other, have fair negotiations, I'm sure we will come out of it stronger.
Very good. Thanks, Roel. That's a good message on which to end. And I hope we get to get that beer together sometime, whether it's in Holland or New York or even here in Ireland at some stage in the future. Thanks so much for your time and thoughts
You're more than
today as
welcome.
well.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's much appreciated. So everyone, thank you for attending. Our next session will be at 10:30 Eastern. We'll turn our attention then to the border duty-free sector in the Americas North and South. So we'll see you back here then. In the meantime, please enjoy the exhibition hub and make the most of your time visiting our exhibitor showcases. So thanks again to Roel, and we'll see all of you again very shortly.